And welcome to another Biddle on Saturday, June 6th, 2020. How's everybody doing?
Doing really well.
Doing great.
I didn't forget this week. We are officially open for business.
I'm doing well.
Well,
Nice.
actually, I did forget. Joe reminded me before the show, so there you go.
It's a preemptive forget. It's
There
fine.
you go. I probably would have forgot, so we'll just leave it at that. So, we are going to talk about Lubuntu. We're going to harass Dan about it. And we might have a few subjects to talk about in the second hour because there's been some fun stories coming out there. But we're going to start out with Lubuntu for the first hour. So, Dan, we're going to just skip you because we know you try Lubuntu.
I can't say I installed 2004 this week, but I might have installed Lubuntu this week, just so you know.
We'll leave it at that, huh?
Yeah. We'll let you think about it.
Yep. All right, Joe, we're going to start with you.
All right. This is a new segment I'd like to call I've Got a Story to Tell. Still working on the opening for it. All right. So Lubuntu. So I struggled early with Lubuntu. Put it on. Actually, I pulled a page out of Tony's book. I want to say Saturday night, it was loaded for bear, ready to go. And so as I was saying before, everything I run here's i7s, i9s, everything runs fast. Like they all run fast. So I didn't think I was really appreciating what Lubuntu could do and could do. So last week, some of you may have seen, I found a laptop in the closet. It's a SL510, and it's about a decade old. And I fired it up, and I thought, you know what, maybe this will help me appreciate what Lubuntu can do. So I threw it on there, and I mean butter, just butter. And you're talking, it's a dual core. It did have 8 gigs of RAM, so and an SSD, but just smooth. And that right then, I was going, oh, this is really nice. I started looking at some of the HTOP stuff, which by the way was really nice. It was already installed. HTOP was there, popped it up, and it's running at, I think idle is running at like 650 megabits RAM and like 1% on my cores. I thought, wow, this is really cool. So started get into it, threw some applications on it. And again, like a brand new laptop. I mean, I was amazed at how smooth it ran. So those were where I developed an appreciation for why it's here. And that's why I did want to talk to Dan. Like, is that why it's here? Is that the goal of the project? Or is it, or is there more involved there? And then as I played with it, I thought, okay, well, some of the little things that I wasn't sure about. So I always try and fire up a new distro from I'm a new user. I don't know how to do anything. So one thing I think would be amazing is a welcome screen. And I think that's probably old hat now. We started seeing it on all the other ones, but I think it would have helped me direct me where to go. I wasn't sure. I opened up, I went to the menu there and I need to get some applications. Where do I go? All right. And I saw Discover, and then I saw the package manager. And I go, okay, so where should I go? What's the preferred method? So that was fine. I know enough to navigate all that, but I just thought from a user, it would be really nice to have that in a welcome that just said, hey, here, click here, do this next. And this is cool. And here's you can find it. Here's some apps we recommend or whatever. The apply all updates button or a little, go to, that was sweet. That's really nice. Boom, here, install everything. Let's see, I don't want to call it what it's not, but it's where to go? The settings, LXQT settings, LXQT configuration center. Great, it was nice. Once I found it, all my stuff I wanted was there to customize and do whatever. So like, again, I was thinking, man, if this was just another icon on the welcome screen, boom, we're right in there and working. But overall, really smooth, no technical difficulties whatsoever. I didn't, and I don't want to say, and this to Dan too, I didn't bother throwing it on the 4K monitor and doing all these other things with it because I just didn't feel like that's probably where it was designed to live. Maybe it is, and I'll play with it, continue on. But those were my initial thoughts, and I really thought it was great. I surprised myself. I thought it was great, really did.
Dan, what do you?
Awesome.
What do you
I can
think?
answer some of that. Yeah, sure. So our target isn't necessarily old machines. It just happens to be, it works out that, older machines do seem to work fine. So when people say old machines, you think 32-bit, really old machines, or at least that's what goes to most people's minds, right? So I would call that not a modern system anymore. I mean, but if you say your target audience is going to be for older machines, people are going to pick up on that and try to shoehorn you in there. Ubuntu as a whole does not have 32-bit support. We were one of the last flavors to actually drop that. So I think, prior to that a little bit, we even knew that some of these things were coming. So we put out an announcement that said we're not targeting old machines per se. Machines that are a decade old are old in our minds probably, but they're not what other people think of. So that being said, it works great on the machine that you mentioned, and we do try to keep those things in mind, with respect to that. Try to keep things as light as possible. We also try to keep the resources down as far as not adding a lot of GTK dependencies, and keep it to the Qt dependencies so that you can keep the machine as performant as possible. So that's great that you found that to work out well. And to answer your question about a welcome screen, that is certainly something that we've been working on, and we do have a working prototype, but it wasn't ready to ship, and we didn't want to do that for an LTS release. We didn't want something that isn't going to be stable for the 3-year lifespan of that. So that's kind of why we held off on that. There was a couple other things I think we were thinking about as well, but we kept the stability in mind of things too. So it's a tough balance to try to get stability and cutting edge at the same time. So yeah. I think
stability was definitely a factor though. And
yep.
and I say I went to this machine because it's what I had, and I thought, it'd be a neat test case. But I also thought, my daughter's got like a little Core i3 laptop, and I thought, man, this thing would probably sing on there. It's not an old laptop; it's a couple of years old, but it would probably run very well on all. Basically, I was thinking it's just a lean, mean, get work done machine, and that's what it felt like. One other question I did have is on the Qt side. So I noticed in Discover you could install some, or it would show you that there were applets, or I forget what they call them, but the little add-on things available. Now, when I tried to install them, it was like, no, you can't do this. So, and maybe I was doing it. Maybe I was holding it wrong. I don't know, but it didn't. I just didn't know if that was by design or if that was just are they supposed to the applet? Are they called applets? I forget what they're called. I don't live in.
Yeah. Good question. I don't know what they're called either, but they're like little panel,
like widgets or something, right?
Widgets that go in a panel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's like that kind of stuff.
I've added some and they seem to work.
Again, I could have been holding it wrong.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have not encountered that, but I will. Here's a plug for our manual, right? So one of the things the Welcome Center has in it is a button to basically take you to our online manual, and you'll find great stuff there. So if you go to manual.lubuntu.me, that'll take you to the latest and greatest manual, and there's a lot of great stuff in there. So I do know that is part of that. So hopefully you can find some answers there.
Is Joe talking about the panel widgets? Is that what he's talking about?
Yeah, that's what they're called.
I think so.
I think that's what they're called.
Yes.
Colin, did you do a video on that?
No, I haven't done one this week, Rocco. I probably will get around to one, but not this week. I got sidetracked.
Colin's done some videos before, so his videos would probably be good too for people.
All right. Dan, I never thought about what you had mentioned about you guys having to think of, what you could put into this one being an LTS and maybe wanting to put some things in, but if they're not completely done or you're going to have to hold off. I never really looked at it from that aspect. So that's a good point. You guys, whoever wants to talk about Lubuntu, put your hand up in the Zoom room and we will get to you. But Jinda, I think you are up, so go ahead.
Hey guys, how's it all going, everybody?
Pretty good.
Pretty good, excellent. I installed it to a flash drive because I already knew it was a lightweight desktop. It's it's not the exact same one they use on the Raspberry Pi, but I think it was at one time. The only thing that I had that went wrong is I could not make a shortcut on the desktop. It had an exclamation point and the icon turned to something other than what it should have. It works fine on the Raspberry Pi one, which is, like I said, very similar to this. But that was it. That's the only issue that I had with it. It was like 363 megs when it was running. KDE and XFCE are tied around in the 500 range. So it is extremely lightweight. I mean, it is fast, it's smooth. There's no other issues I had than not being able to make a desktop icon, which do I really, really deep down care? Probably not.
Yep, fair enough. So the Raspberry Pi uses LXDE.
Okay.
And this is LXQt, which is the project that basically, the LXDE developers switch to. So
okay.
And so as far as making the shortcut, I believe if you were to right click on that shortcut that you did make, and you can click trust this executable or whatever, I think that'll take your exclamation point away. So I think it'll work for you.
Okay. Well, it's just something I noticed while playing with it. Once again, I probably would never use a shortcut, but it was one of those things like, okay, how do I do this and how do I do that kind of thing? I think it was Joe said, I want to start off like a new guy,
Right.
Okay. Yep. And these are the dumb things that I did. So
that's perfect.
Yeah. And God, is it fast and lightweight. I mean, that's why it's probably similar to the one on the Raspberry Pi.
Yep. Excellent.
All right. Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. I see Tony has his hand up. We'll call on you, Tony.
Yeah. It runs very well. It's quite lightweight. It's clean. It's kind of minimal, but it looks good. There's no green. Always a plus point. I like the papyrus icons. It's my favorite set, so that was good that they were already there. 2 package managers. I'm not sure about the Muon. I presume it's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
I've not really had much experience with that, but Discover is a good package manager anyway these days, and so most of the software you want's there, so that's not really a problem.
Did you ever think we would get to the day where somebody would make the statement, Discover's a good package manager?
I know.
It's improved an awful lot.
It really has.
It has.
I mean,
let's write this day down. It landed on the moon and Discover has made it.
I didn't think we were ever going to get to that day, but I think you're right, Tony. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm not a lover of the PC Man FM. I think it's called the file manager. But it's okay. It does the job. But yeah, I mean, all positives. I had no issues with it at all. It seemed to work well. It seemed to do everything that it should do. So yeah, it's all good news.
Cool. No, thanks, Tony. Colin, looks like you've got your hand up as well. Hello, sir.
Yes, I have got my hand up, Dan. How you going? I have installed Lubuntu on a modern low-spec laptop. So it's only, I think, 2-3 years old, I think, this laptop. So runs quite well. It's only running at about 370 megabytes out of 4 gig of RAM. So that's quite good. I don't know. It's an Intel Celeron, so I don't know what that means. Is that a dual core or something? I don't know.
Celeron?
Not
really?
Celeron?
No core. I think it's took the core.
No.
They took the core, and then there's a little hamster wheel and a bird chasing the
Is
hamster.
that what it is?
Yeah.
So they still make those these days.
I don't think they make them anymore.
I don't know. I think they do. I think they do.
Now you know why
they do.
Now you know why
Just
Windows 10 is not running on there. So I thought I'd help
Yeah.
that computer out.
It's a good call.
Anyway, it's running well. There's one thing I want to bang on about, and I've been banging on for a while about Lubuntu, and I know you guys have probably been just busy focusing on long-term support, but are you going to make an official change wallpaper widget or something like that? Because there never has been one in Lubuntu, and I have been banging on in my videos about it for quite a while, but I'd have to think that you guys have been focused too busy on just long-term support release. So I was hounding Simon about that for a while, but he doesn't turn up these days because Rocco keeps hounding him about Pulse.
I know he might never come back.
He won't come back. I tried. He won't even answer me on Telegram anymore.
Is that in the pipes?
Well, no, but it can be.
Is it just meant to be that you just select your pictures folder and just choose your pictures from there, or is that how it's supposed to?
You can do that, and it'll actually do
Okay.
like a slideshow thing too, and it's pretty popular, honestly.
Okay,
but yeah, no, I mean, I don't know.
That's cool. I just thought that most distros do have a widget for selecting background, but it's one thing. Maybe that's just the way you like to operate, and that's fine. I just thought it should be there, maybe. But if that's the way people are using it, then fair enough. I've got no problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too inaccessible. I mean, you can just right-click on the desktop, and then so I get it. But maybe some sort of widget thing that makes sense.
Probably, from my point of view, it's just what's expected, but maybe that's not the way it's supposed to work. So that's just why I'm asking. So
would fit nice in the welcome.
Yeah, that makes sense. Actually, yeah, they blend together.
The other thing is, I was cutting out a shape in GIMP. I was trying out GIMP on there, and when I went to cut the shape out, GIMP just crashed. So I'd have to think that I was putting it under too much strain for this type of computer. Probably nothing to do with Lubuntu. So, but I just thought I'd mention that happened. But I'd have to think I'm trying too much in that computer. So, but as far as everything else is concerned, it runs sweet, and does justice for that laptop, to be honest. So yeah, great job.
Cool. Well, thanks, Colin. I'd take a minute here and introduce Rahman. He's also part of the Lubuntu team.
Hi.
G'day, Rahman.
How you doing, Rahman?
Hey, Rahman. Welcome.
Fine. It's actually 5:30 a.m. here, and I just woke up.
Oh my gosh! You had to set the alarm, huh?
Yeah. My mom woke up saying, "Why is your alarm blaring at 5 in the morning?"
Oh man. Well, thank you for being here, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Rahman, we really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. That's dedication right there. Awesome. All right. We obviously weren't checking the door. Windows 11 user has got some input on Lubuntu. I know. Well, he changed his name.
So
what'd you think of Lubuntu?
It's fine. It's, for me personally, it's a little unstable, but I don't know why that's happening. But then again, my laptop is probably the most magical kind of thing ever. So I do get like update notifications every 3 seconds, and I always try to avoid them because last time I tried using them, it crashed my entire computer for about half an hour before I reverted all the changes thanks to System Back. And but a lot of the issues I've been having are minuscule. I'm even running the Lubuntu desktop right now because it is a wonderfully light desktop environment and it's pretty well featured. Some things do confuse me. I especially do not like PCMan FM. It is one of my, I really do not like it. But other than that, it is one of the best I've used in a very long time.
I wonder if some of your issues could be your Windows 11 base that you're running on.
Could be.
I mean,
currently my Windows 11 PC is currently on the moon thanks to NASA. But, no, it's just my laptop that I'm currently running is probably the most magical thing ever. It can't even run Debian, but it can run Ubuntu proper just fine.
Well, my test machine is giving me issues right now. So I was able to install Ubuntu on it. And I have some weird issue going on with the test machine right now that I have to figure out, but was able to get it installed. And I will say, I don't know if it was user error or, you know, the disk or the USB that I used or whatever, but I did mess up my grub on that test machine. But I was able to boot into it and, you know, I played around with it for a couple minutes. I did notice that there was not any support, Dan, for high DPI.
Yeah, not really. Yeah, you get font scaling, but that's kind of like it. Yeah.
Blurry. It's
Go
a
ahead,
bit
Irma.
blurry. It's a bit blurry if you in the high DPI settings.
Yep.
On big monitors, the texts are a bit blurry.
Right.
So, other than that, you know, it's fine. I mean, it's fine if you like can see like a hawk and you're 20 years old, but I'm not 20 or can see like a hawk anymore. So, and plus the monitor is like up there as the third monitor. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't blurry for me as far as, you know, seeing it. It was just really, really tiny.
Yeah.
So I did play around with it for a little bit, but I didn't get to dive into it. After I did that, the test machine went on the fritz, and it's been on the fritz ever since. So I didn't get a lot of time to play with it. But
gotcha. No, I mean, so at work I have a 27-inch that's a 2K monitor, and that works really well for me. So I mean, you're you know, you found the spot where it doesn't, you know, shine for sure.
Yep. Sorry to hear that, dude.
No, I mean, and it's something that is in the pipeline, honestly.
All right. Anybody else want to jump in on the Lubuntu talk?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one more thing. I was playing around with it, and I noticed that one thing I've never noticed before is you have a icon override in the panel, so you can select a different icon in the panel as opposed to the rest of the system, which I found quite interesting. So I haven't discovered that before. I don't know if that was there before or not, but I only discovered it during the week. So that's quite a nice little feature, I must say.
Yep, very cool.
Yeah.
I just want to thank the Lubuntu team real quick, not for the amazing distribution, but like for actually helping me, especially you, Dan Simmons. You have made Ubuntu Lumina less of a nightmare project.
Happy to help.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be said for stability. I mean, glitz and glam, and you know, I'm a sucker for it too. I mean, but I ran into zero issues. I mean, just solid. And it is something I do feel like it's probably very close. Pop was one of the only ones I felt comfortable just putting in front of my kid and going, go to work. And this, I feel like
Hey, there you go. You got muted.
I unmuted myself.
You unmuted yourself?
I muted myself. Did you hear any of that?
We heard part of it.
I didn't touch anything.
The first half of it.
Now Dan's muted.
And then it went.
Now look, I think there's something. Yeah.
I think we're all trying to push the button at the same time.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, anyways, smooth. I would feel comfortable throwing it with my kids, and that was the point. Is it's they would have to relearn how to use a start menu.
Right.
Sorry. Yeah, well, they're used to iPads and GNOME, so GNOME just kind of fits that thing. But having to find a button for menus, that's just something. But other than that, solid, stable, great.
Yeah, I mean,
I've got one.
It's familiar, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
very
Tom.
familiar.
Yeah, I've got another question, Dan. With the menu, when you search in the menu, it drops down and just finds the one thing you're looking for. Now, is that meant to be the default behavior, or is that just something that's been inherited from the past? Because most things just sort of find it in the menu and just highlight it, whereas this one just drops the whole thing down. Is that meant to be the default behavior of the menu?
Yeah, I think that's meant to be the default, so that you get yourself narrowed right in. The other thing you can use is LXQT, runner, which is a lot like KRunner, and that's a little more full featured, I guess, if you will, as far as searching, because you can do like contextual search things.
How do you use that?
You use the
Windows plus R.
Windows R.
Oh, really? Is that
Windows
right?
plus R.
Yeah.
There. I like that.
Very nice.
Muscle memory there. I had to look at the keyboard to see which keys I hit.
I like that.
Yeah, so it's pretty great way to search stuff, honestly, and you can execute things right there in Runner, and it does a lot. It's pretty awesome.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. I'm gonna have to remember that one. Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
So when the LTS of 2004 came out, Lubuntu was the first one I installed on my 10-year-old laptop, which is an i7, but it's actually not a bad machine. No high DPI, so no issues there. But it ran really well, and I had it on there for a few weeks. But the reason for this review is to tell Dan thank you, because I had it on there for like 3-4 weeks, and I would bug him out every now and then on Telegram and on here. How do you do this? How do you find that? And he was great. He was a good source of help.
Yeah.
So thanks, Dan.
Dan has always been there when people have asked, including myself. I have asked many times for help, and he's always willing to help you. So you definitely got to look him up on Telegram, right, Dan?
Yeah,
absolutely.
But I had to go because I've been playing with BSD. I've got Peppermint, and I'm now a Windows 10 user. So.
All right, Dan, you had mentioned Muon Updater, right? Not Updater, but the package manager. Is that, I had heard before that wasn't under development anymore. Is that true or what?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that's just getting bug fixes right now. But I mean, so a lot of people requested Synaptic, I mean, as a super popular thing, right? And then this is to give you the same, I mean, they look very similar and act very, very much the same. One's cute, one's, GTK. So the idea is to give you that familiar, package manager that you used in Synaptic, because even as great as Discover has become, it's not super great on older machines. It takes a lot of horsepower, or it feels like it does, to because it's doing a lot of things in the background. So we wanted to give two options there. That's why we have both.
Well, it's definitely nice to have both options there, because some people just prefer that type of package manager. That they don't want to store, basically. So
right.
So what you're saying is Muon is actually Qt. Is that why that's in there?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Rocco, I think you forgot one of the options. There's actually 3. It's called the terminal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was waiting for that.
Sure.
Yeah, what's that?
Well, the thing is, I mean, even in the 2004 releases, I have found that a lot of times trying to do an update through the package store doesn't catch all the updates that are there, because I can have it, the update little widget will come up and I'll click on it and do the updates through that. Then I'll go into terminal and do sudo apt update, and there's updates available to install. So it's, it's gotten a lot better, but it still doesn't catch everything as well as the terminal does.
Interesting.
Is that the software, the GNOME software updater Dave's talking about, or you talking about the the Discover, because
I think-
they're completely different. Discover seems to pick up updates, no worries, but I have noticed that behavior with GNOME software before.
Doesn't Ubuntu just have their own updater app?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So
yeah,
we-
but
we-
I've noticed it in Kubuntu. I've noticed it in regular Ubuntu. It didn't seem to. It seemed to be desktop agnostic. Anytime I was going through a GUI, it seemed to on occasion or most times miss one or two of the library updates that are available.
I've had it on Pop. I've got it actually had it today. Had it happen today on Pop. Same.
Well, I encourage you to try the new Lubuntu because we did add a updater this cycle, and knowing what it does in the background, it should do sudo apt update in first, and then it'll run the full upgrade after that. So it should refresh the cache and know what updates are out there, and then run. And the beauty behind it is you can actually see what it's updating as it's updating. So it's a pretty great tool. We didn't have that before. We didn't have anything notifying people that updates are available, and that can be problematic. So I'm really glad that we were able to get that in.
I think I'm going to have to install it retroactively because I serious withdrawal symptoms. I haven't been here in 2 weeks, and I don't think I have hopped distros in 3. So
That's ridiculous.
I agree.
Easy talk.
All right. Anybody else want to jump in on Lubuntu?
Sorry.
It's Joe. Joe wants to jump in on
sorry.
Lubuntu. Joe,
I know I
how are
haven't
you,
said
sir?
anything today. I know I haven't said anything yet today, but okay. Dan, so everything I said was factual and true. I forgot to mention when I went into Qt style and there's a Windows option.
Yeah.
And it's like Windows 90 nothing. Like,
right.
Can we just
drop it?
Just
Actually,
just fix that one. Can we fix that one?
If I can suggest an alternative, leave that in there, but label it specifically like Windows 95.
Right.
Add in like a 7, 8, and 10, because I have a computer illiterate father. So when I put him on Linux, I specifically chose a GTK theme for him that made his computer look like Windows 95, Windows 98, because that's what he was familiar with and what he felt most comfortable with.
Yeah.
So it looked awful, but he was comfortable. And a lot of times that's what makes people comfortable with Linux is it looks like what they used to have. So they're not coming into this thing and it looks completely different. You stick GNOME in front of a standard Windows user and they freak out because they don't know where the start menu is. They don't know what any of this stuff is. They don't know how to use it. But if you give them like Cinnamon or some XFCE stuff or Plasma, it may look different. They can figure out how to use it, but they're a little bit uncertain. You get it to look like Windows, they're good for the most part.
Right.
Because they feel more comfortable. And that's a large part of what we need to get people over to Linux is just making them feel more comfortable.
It's good that your father knows where the start menu is. I know several people that don't know where that is.
He doesn't know how to upload an image to an email. He has asked me for help multiple times.
But there's nothing wrong with not knowing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Just they don't know. So
different skill set.
Yeah, exactly. They know, like for example, my dad doesn't know everything about the computer, but man, he sure does know a lot about a lot of other stuff like woodworking and furniture and life. So
yeah, that's good.
That's okay. Bill, go ahead.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Bill.
So
How
I just wanted to say a couple of things. In the past, I guess 18 or so months, Lubuntu has done some massive changes in their website, their documentation. There's Dan mentioned the manual. It is really fabulous. There is a ton of information available. and the team that is, I interact a little bit with Walter and Dan, a lot with Dan and Simon a little bit, and Chris. I interact with them on a fair bit, and they are so helpful. And I made a little joke. I was talking to Dan about something that is totally unrelated to Lubuntu, and he jumped on Discord, helped me out. And it's just, that team is just so helpful. You can, if you go into their Telegram group or their IRC chat, they're the ones that are actually supporting you. And that's an incredible feat that you're getting direct developer support. And they're doing a lot of cool stuff. They're continuously working with the KDE guys and Ubuntu guys on getting Calamares additions, fixes. I think one of the really interesting things that no one has touched on is Calamares is the only installer that lets you do a real, true, full disk encryption. And that's that's pretty strong. You can argue whether or not you need /boot encrypted or not. You can argue it either way, but it's pretty awesome that it actually gives you the full disk encryption. So they're doing wonderful things. Take some time, and if you really look at this and you're like, it's neat, but I don't understand how to do it, their documentation is fabulous, and they spend a lot of time. So I just thank you, Dan. Thank you, Walter. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Simon and Rahman. It's Rahman, right? Yeah. Thank you, Lubuntu team, and that's it.
Yep.
I would like to point out that Yast also allows for real full disk encryption.
Cool.
Good point. Dan,
Good
I wanted
point.
to go to the website basically.
Mhm.
And can you, is there a background story on why, the real website is lubuntu.me?
Yeah.
But, or ME, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, me. Yeah.
But there's another one that comes up in the search results as lubuntu.net, but that's an older thing. Is there?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Is there a story I can share?
Yeah, is there a
Yeah.
story behind this or what?
Well, I mean, there was a split, I guess, years ago now at this point. And so the people that are part of .net, they're not really active in the team. Right?
Okay.
So it's part of a different group, and they're basically on their own. They do their own thing. So then .me is the way that we were able, I say we, I wasn't even part of the team at the time.
But you are now, so.
Yeah, no, to keep going forward, right? So got to have a website, so.
Okay, so Lubuntu.net is not the official website. Lubuntu.me is the official website.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Just so everybody's aware.
And you won't even find new versions to download there, I think.
No, the latest version I think is 1904.
Yeah, which is end of support.
Yeah. So
and it has been an issue having that, and it's unfortunate. It'd be nice if they discontinue or at least forward to
forwarding would have been nice.
But they're non-responsive, and if you look at their website, it doesn't have anything. It doesn't say anything is official. So I don't know.
Okay,
we're kind of stuck.
Yep. Just figured I'd ask.
Yeah, that's as much as I can disclose.
All right. So what are you guys working on, Dan?
We're working on a few things. So one of the things that happened right about the same time we released 2004 was a new version of LXQt came out. So that was a bit unfortunate. Obviously, we weren't able to land that into 2004, but we are working on getting a backports set up so that people can install that. So that's in the works. That's already landed into 2010 already. So when 2010 comes out, it'll have LXQt 0.15, and
Is that what you meant by installing Lubuntu this week?
yeah, I did. I installed 2010 this week. I did, and it's running the latest version of the desktop, and there's some nice things that it seems to have fixed up. So I'm pretty excited about it, honestly.
Very
so
nice.
That's the biggest thing I think we're working on right now. We have a continuous integration, CI Jenkins setup that basically generates daily packages that get uploaded to PPA. So we're testing the latest stuff all the time, and we'll use that same infrastructure to be able to develop the backports. So we're pretty excited about it.
Is there a time frame you think that the backport will be available?
I don't want to disclose a time frame per se, but I would say in the next month or so.
Okay. Yeah, that was just a general time
or
frame.
or less maybe. It's close. We're working on it. I was working on it earlier today, so.
I might need a link to that.
Yeah, we'll definitely announce it. You'll see. Look for an announcement. I guess that's the best way to keep tabs on that. I know Simon has done a ton of work on engineering all of that. He's the main architect, and what he's done there is pretty awesome.
So is there a link? Have you got a 2010 anywhere on your website or something? Or
2010 might not be on the website, but if you go to ISO, the ISO QA daily image, you can
CD images.
Yeah, CD images. You can find it there too. Either of those. I'll shoot you a link here in a second.
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
In chat.
Yep, that'll be great.
All right. Ramon, you have anything you want to add about Lubuntu?
Yeah, one more thing that's coming in is the grub theme, I think. We have a special grub theme for Lubuntu. It was actually done just at the time of this release, but we decided to keep it in the next one, or we'll probably get it in the point release. We have a special theme coming for Lubuntu.
Very
nice.
Special
grub theme.
All right. Well, anybody else want to add anything about Ubuntu?
So, yeah, the other thing that we really are, I mentioned it earlier, but I'll mention it again. We are working on, a welcome screen, a welcome app, and hopefully we can get that going. The other thing that's in the works is having the manual so that it's we'll have a local copy on your install, so you won't be dependent on the website. And we're working on delivering that through a snap. So hopefully that'll be the way that goes, or yeah, we're working on it.
So good things coming up for Lubuntu.
I sure hope so.
All right. Well, I know other people said it, but I just want to thank Dan, you, for all the help you've given us and for your work on Lubuntu. Ramon, the same to you as well. Thank you very much. And everybody on the Lubuntu team that is not here, Simon on down to Walter and everybody else that works on it. I really appreciate all of the effort you guys put into it.
There was just a question in the chat on YouTube asking if there was a minimal install.
There is not.
I think that's the default installation, ain't it?
Yeah, that's
yeah, there's not a lot installed, right? I mean, it's pretty minimal. No, you're right. I mean, it is pretty minimal.
I mean, I think that there is an upstream Calamari's minimal install version for Ubuntu Cinnamon. I personally just made 2 different ISOs, one with the minimal package, one without the extras. Just my idea.
Joshua, we were talking about Lubuntu.
Well, we use Calamari's too.
Just saying.
I overrode the system, okay?
Okay.
Lubuntu, Joshua. Not Ubuntu Cinnamon, but Lubuntu.
Yep. He's just got a one-track mind, that's all. It's all good.
It is all good. It's all good.
All right. Well, I guess that's going to wrap it up for our talk on Lubuntu. And I appreciate all the effort I really do.
Well, thanks. It's a team effort for sure.
All right, so we'll go continue on our schedule. We're over halfway through, I think, just so you guys know. But next week we are going to sit down and talk about Ubuntu Studio. So that will be, I think, a really good discussion as well. There's a lot of people, sometimes you think of Ubuntu Studio as like a specific user distro, but I think anybody could sit down and use Ubuntu Studio. They just happen to have all of that extra stuff in there too. So that will be our talk, or our distro that we're going to test out this week, and our talk for next week. So
Tony, I see you installing. Stop it.
Tony has the schedule. I gave him the schedule weeks ago, so he
so
knows.
It's been in for a while already.
Yeah, so he knows. It's probably already installed. I'm just saying.
Rocco, I'd like to suggest you one more distro for the distro challenge.
Okay.
I think that would be the Ubuntu Unity Remix.
We have that. That is on the schedule, Ramon.
Yeah.
Yep.
I just tried
Unity Remix people are awesome. They are really friendly, really helpful, and just fun.
Yep. Ramon, you said you just tried it?
Rudra.
Yeah, last week I just tried it out, but I haven't got a chance to extensively test it. As I really like Unity, I'd like to have that on board.
Yep. That is definitely coming up in our list of distros to try. So
we see it, Tony.
What you don't see is the server rack you put in. It's got all the drives in it, so you can load all of them up ahead of time. All he's got to do is fire up the laptop. It looks like he installs them every week. Right, Tony?
All right, so we are going to move on to our next topic of business. And so it came out, or Linux Mint came out this week, and they put a blog post out about their monthly news like they normally do. But it kind of made some waves, more so than it usually does. And that is because of the fact that they are not going to allow Snapd to be installed by default. They are normally, like for Chrome the Chrome browser, if you try to install it through apt, it will install the Snap package. And they're basically going to leave it as an empty package and let the user decide or tell them how to install it. And if they wanted to install it, they can. But what do you guys think of this news?
Just so stupid.
So stupid. But why, Tyler? Why, Tyler?
So not only is there not the Chromium package there, but now users of Mint don't have access. They're actively being blocked from accessing software that is in the Snap Store, especially software that is exclusively shipped through the Snap Store, because Canonical has gone through that work to speak with software developers to get them to port their software to Linux through the promise that, the Snap Store is going to make your piece of software available across all these different platforms, but you only need to target the Snap.
Well, see, I think, I can see both sides of the point. Like, I can see the fact that they don't, what they posted in their blog was basically that it gets installed without the user's permission. Like, it connects to the Snap Store without the user knowing about it, installs it, and I can understand that side of it, because you definitely want to know where you're connecting to and what you're installing. But again, on the other hand, like you said, I think it's a backwards move in the progress of Linux to say we're not going to allow that to happen. We're not going to allow this to be installed, and basically put the users are in the middle. The users are the one that are stuck trying to figure out how to install Chrome now, rather than it just being installed. So I think it's just a bad situation.
This is specifically Chromium and not the Google Chrome package.
Right.
This is like the
I'm
Google
sorry.
Chromium.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
I misspoke. It is the Chromium package, not Chrome.
I think they have a valid point that they're trying to avoid, what a lot of people scream at System D for, that just came in and took over everything. And now, you know, so many distros just assume that it's got to be there, and they don't want Snapd becoming the same thing. But, you know, I can also see the argument on the other side that they're trying to avoid a walled garden by creating a walled garden.
Well, when you look at it from an Ubuntu perspective, and you look at the reasons why they did this, I can understand why they did this. You have how many different versions of Chrome that you have to package for whatever versions you're supporting. So there's at least probably 4, I think, versions of
All
Chrome
the past currently
that,
supported LTSs.
right, that they're going to have to maintain, package, and you know, have all the dependencies there and make sure they're working. That's a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I can understand why they would want to make a snap and get rid of all that overhead and just maintain one. So,
Well, and especially when the snap can have the updated libraries that a piece of software might rely on, whereas some of these libraries on these LTS distros, they're aging. Newer software may require a new version, and just the deb may plain just not install at all. I actually had an issue on the server side with Nextcloud where I had to stuff in a PPA to grab a newer PHP just to be able to upgrade.
And some debs will actually put in newer libraries that will break software that requires the older libraries.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas?
So I kind of understand where they're coming from with this, but I think there would have been a better way to go about it. I understand that they don't want to include it due to, you know, the Chromium stuff as their big example. I also understand that there's a very small, negligible reason not to include Snap because it's a systemd service. It starts up by default with the rest of your system, so it delays your startup by what, 1/10 of a second, and it makes your ISO 10 megabytes larger maximum. So there is a very small reason there, but on most modern systems, that's negligible.
Well, I don't think that was their reasoning for doing it. I think it was
Right,
more for the...
It's more of like a side thing.
Yeah.
I think the better way to go about this would be to say, for this release, we're not including Snap because of these reasons, and we are going to work with Canonical, since Snap, the client, is open sourced, to rectify these issues. And once these issues have been rectified, we will add Snap back into Linux Mint by default, and leave it so that you can install Snap if you want to, which you still can.
You still
Why
can,
does it
yes.
need to be there by default, though? I mean, I can understand
Yeah,
it.
I don't see why it has to
If
be
you
there by
want it,
default.
install it. But why, you know, why does it have to be there by default?
I agree that it doesn't have to be there by default. I very often install Flatpak on my own system because, if I'm not mistaken, on Ubuntu, at least up until recently, you had to install Flatpak yourself. And when that was the case, I would always install Flatpak myself. But it makes it so you don't have to go through these steps to do this. And I understand most people, at least at our level, know how to do this, but there are still people out there who they don't know how to do this yet. So by having Snap in there, at least makes it easier. But Linux Mint has also been pushing Flatpak way more than Snap lately. So it's sort of kind of a logical step for them, but it's a little bit too heavy-handed, I think.
Did something change beyond needing to sudo apt install snapd and then sudo snap search whatever you want?
I don't think so.
So I mean, it's not like it's really complicated to install if you do want it.
No, it's not. But it does save you, what, 10 seconds?
It does feel like the nature of the way they presented it.
I entirely agree that the way they presented their argument could have been done a lot better.
That
But
seems to be the issue.
Yeah, I do see that they make some valid points in that it almost seems to them that Canonical is pushing its version of this is how Linux should be and this is how it should run, and taking away the user's choice of, setting it up however they want, which honestly, 20 years ago, yeah, that was the biggest hallmark of Linux, was that you could customize it any way you wanted. But I think part of what they're forgetting, as much as they are the distro for many people as new users, is that most Linux users nowadays honestly aren't like us. They're just normal computer users who flip on the switch and expect it to just work and let them go do stuff. They don't see all this background stuff, and the arguments that are being made by both sides go right over their heads, and they're like, yeah, okay, but does my browser work? Can I get my email? Okay.
So I was just kind of looking into it. I did a sudo apt show Chromium browser to see the descriptions. In the Ubuntu repos, it specifically says Chromium transitional package replaced by snap with dependencies of snapd. So it does show the user that this is going to install a snap. But the other thing is, I'm on Pop! OS 2004 right now, and Pop! OS took the solution of, hey, we're going to package a Chromium deb for our own repo that overrides the deb that's in the Ubuntu repos. But if I still wanted to, I could install snapd and get the snaps I wanted on Pop! OS, which is a much better solution than what is trying to be pushed by the Mint team.
That's what I was going to go right there, Tyler. I was just going to say, Pop did a similar thing. They're not shipping snapd by default. In fact, if I wanted to go find some snaps, I had to install it. It's not a big deal.
Right.
But they didn't make a blog post that was like, hey, Ubuntu, we're using your base and we're mad at you. We don't want to use your thing. So we're going to, it just felt a little petty and not in the spirit of what Linux has been about. Let's work together. Hey, here's the base for your entire system, Linux Mint. Hey, thanks, but you left some dirt on the floor. Just address it like Pop did or whatever. But it just, I was reading through the blog post again. It just feels a little petty.
I would, like I mentioned earlier, not only do Mint users not have access to snapd, but they're still leaving the Chromium browser package linked. Whereas on Pop! OS, I got the Chromium browser deb package, and I can install snapd.
I would like to point out that Mint has never, the reason they exist is because they didn't like the way Ubuntu did something. They were a protest distro. I'm not trying to say it's just a bunch of grumpy, people and demonize the Mint devs or anything. But I think Pop! OS is content. Of course they push. They sort of lean more towards the flat pack side of the universal packaging thing, but they're content to just basically stay pretty even with upstream and just sort of pretend they're in Ubuntu flavors almost. Whereas Mint, they have their own versioning scheme and they don't follow Ubuntu's release schedule. They have their own release schedule. And their own repos, which I believe change a lot more stuff than just Pop! OS's PPA. I know I've broken Mint systems by installing stuff from the Ubuntu repos.
Been there, done that.
I will be honest, Mint, I personally know it because I understand what they're doing. The thing is, there's a bunch of software, for example, PyCharm, Atom, a bunch of software that we probably use, whether you're on Pop! OS or Ubuntu. I'm sure that we all, or at least most of us, probably have a snap installed or have had.
I don't, and you can get PyCharm as a flat pack, which is enabled by default on Pop and on Mint, like all of the IntelliJ stuff.
Yeah, which is good. Of course, the way they addressed it probably wasn't the best, but
yeah. And in their defense, can anyone here name a single distro that has not had an announcement faux pas somewhere in their history?
Oh, the thing.
The one thing I will say is that this is just in their blog. This is not the release of their next distro. So things could change up until that point. This is just their monthly news statement. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah. And to agree, I guess they can do whatever they want. I mean, Mint does have packages like Mint System, and They bundle their own Minecraft launcher in the repos, and you can find other stuff there too.
The original Joe. Go ahead.
All I was going to do, I mean, like you mentioned, Rocco, there's multiple points you can make, but for a long time we've kind of had conversations even about distros out there that there's way too many. It'd be nice if there was just one or two or whatever that you could focus on and keep a more unified, I guess, endpoint in sight. The way things are presented, and yourself, you get whether it's. I think if you put something in text, it can also be misconstrued, possibly.
Text Text can very easily be taken wrong, Joe.
Exactly, because you can't get the demeanor of the person writing it. But that being said, we also have had many conversations, and I'm on Mint right now. Been on it for almost about a year and a half. There's been a lot of conversations about how Mint has been behind because they're always kind of bucking the cart because they're doing things their own way. And so this in one breath should not be a surprise. Now, I have run snaps on here and Flatpaks. I tend to run Flatpaks more because snaps, for whatever reason, don't seem to play nice as well on Mint, which now with all this conversation and what's happening is that being done intentional, or is it just that it just doesn't work as well? I don't know. I mean, this, it is Ubuntu's product, and I guess you're playing in more or less in their sandbox, and they have a right to do what they want with their product. Some can make the argument, like the word was mentioned earlier, which came to my mind is the thing about Linux is always choice. Is choice being taken away? But the reality of it is I think, and also to get some stability, some consistency, some long-term future goals for it, you're going to have a certain amount of things that are going to be, and pardon the word, somewhat proprietary to how it runs and works, which is the uniform, I guess, line of direction. So, and Alan for a long time has talked about snaps and the benefits of it or whatever, and then you hear arguments on the other side with people saying, and I hate this word, when things are called garbage, because there are people working behind this stuff, and no matter what you think of it, you shouldn't necessarily maybe go that harsh. If anything, offer an opinion, and we've said this too, that offer an opinion that may offer a new direction, a better solution, an enhancement, whatever, to make it better. I don't know for sure myself how I feel about all of this stuff. I do like the idea that if I want to, like you said, who was it that just said it now about Pop? Was it Daniel? Pop, I think, kind of is maybe Canonical. I typed in the chat. I said, I almost think that Canonical at some level could maybe take a little bit of a lead or look at what Pop is doing, because I think Pop is really enhancing a lot of nice things to Ubuntu's product. I mean, I have it on a test laptop here. My 5.5-year-old, well, going to be 6 in a couple of weeks here, grandson loves it. So so I just put it on the HTPC. So my point is they're doing something right, and they're in one direction. And the thing is I don't hear many people really pointing. Originally they did, but many people aren't really pointing fingers at Pop the way they're doing things. And in essence, they're kind of, I don't want to use the word locking it down, but they're kind of tuning that product to their physical hardware products, so everything works very well. And I think it's going to be one of those things we're going to have to see and wait and let this play out. But I think what it's coming down to now is it's a direction that it's going, and there are some that are going to rock that apple cart, and they're going to fight a little bit, I guess, so to speak, or kick and scream a little bit. But eventually they'll come around, is the way I'm seeing it. And I'm sorry it took so much time, but I was just trying to get that full thought out.
So I'm the one that brought up Pop because I just got the new Lemur Pro, so I've been playing with it. So as far as the difference between Pop and Mint, Pop OS kind of came out of that decision right when Ubuntu dropped Unity, but I don't think there was really that animosity from System 76 with Ubuntu. There feels like it's coming from the Mint community towards upstream Ubuntu. It just feels like there's a lot of active disliking of what Ubuntu does from Mint.
I think that's, or sorry, you can finish, sorry. Oh, I was just saying that what I was saying earlier is that, yes, that I think that's 100% true, because Mint's exists because they didn't like the way Ubuntu was doing things. Whereas Pop, maybe they have some slight disagreements, but it's more that they want something that meshes with their hardware, I think.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just something that I'm thinking of is they've had the Linux Mint Debian edition thing for, what, 10 years now? If they really dislike their upstream that much, why aren't they putting that much work into just going to straight Debian rather than sticking with an upstream that they so actively disagree with?
All right, Aris.
Okay. About the snap being blocked, I think one of the things that's lost. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but it's almost lost. I think on the same time, is that Ubuntu is supported for 5 years free, and then 10 years for paid support. So they gotta maintain the package all this time. And I know they said that in the past they had to modify the Chromium package because they couldn't have an up-to-date Chromium package because it wouldn't work with the system the way they had to get it into the repos. So they weren't able to actually have an up-to-date browser, which I think is kind of important to like software. Like if you want something up-to-date, you want your browser. So this is the technical way that they decided that they could be able to support it. Because I think a lot of people talk about how Snap was underhandedly being installed. It wasn't because they were doing just remote Snap. They were doing it to be able to continue to provide Chromium as a package.
Yes, agreed. Big Pod.
Well, as a developer who uses Snap, I am kind of miffed because that was my main way of delivering software. I and my friend developed, so yeah, it's kind of sad for that since we lost a bit of audience, but otherwise, I also think this was a bad move because Snap is kind of getting the most audience when it comes to the universal package manager market. Basically, Flatpak is not getting as much attention from where I see how things are going. So I think that was somewhat a bad idea, especially since a lot of Canonical has gotten a lot of companies to switch to or to make a Linux version just because there is one universal system to package and not 367 package managers you have on Linux, and still growing. We don't know how many more will come. And in my opinion, Snap is great. It works great, and I think it will be de facto package manager, de facto universal package manager in a few years.
Well, I think there are, I don't know. This post came out, and like you guys said, there was a lot that was said that maybe could have been worded differently, but there is some valid points to what they were saying. DJ, do you got any thoughts on this issue at all?
Not directly. I use snaps on servers, but I will not use them on workstations. And it's mostly because of the complications of the interface. But yeah, I'll use it on servers. It works great. I mean, I do use it. And Fedora can use snaps, which is what I use. I can use it. I don't because it's my workstation. But it's just my own personal preference. I think you know, the whole thing with having containers and applications in containers and set interfaces that makes it simple and easy to create packages that run. I think that's a plus. I think that you know, that as Big Pod was pointing out, for developers, that makes their effort a lot less to try to get new applications to us, and I'm all for that.
Yep.
One thing about using Snapd on something that's not an Ubuntu base, like I'm on OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, is that there's like, it does confinement through AppArmor, and there's some sort of provision for that, but basically Canonical has not yet pushed all of their AppArmor patches and things upstream. So you're not getting the same level of confinement on like Fedora or OpenSUSE or Manjaro if you're on an Ubuntu base.
Fedora has their own linkages for SE Linux. They already do that.
Oh well, yeah, SE Linux. So that's a whole
they already do
other
that.
can of worms.
Well, there are many users that don't like snaps, but I can say that most of them are longtime Linux users, and they are the guys that are used to having that freedom of, I want to install this and I want to install it this way. I don't want anything else on my system except what I put on it. I don't want it connecting anywhere. I don't want it doing anything that I don't want it to do. And that's part of the reason why they came to Linux, was because they could have that control. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And it's their choice to do it that way. I don't personally have a problem with snaps, because to me, snaps are something that allow us to grow the packages that we get. They make it easier to get packages. They make it easier for companies to bring the packages to us. So I am, as DJ said, all for that. So, Big Pot?
I just wanted to say what Daniel said about AppArmor. As far as I'm aware, Manjaro has full AppArmor lockdown on snaps, because actually I believe they actually worked with Canonical and Snap Team to get it all up and running. I believe it was in one of the sprints, Snap sprints in Montreal. I believe I heard Popey talk about that. So
they did it. I think it was about a year ago or so.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
and I believe they have full lockdown of the snaps when it comes to AppArmor and all that.
Okay,
I had. If I remember correctly, on one of those sprints, even though they didn't go with snaps, some of the elementary developers actually contributed to the snap system. So it's like, even if they didn't go with it, they're still contributing to it, which is awesome.
Yeah, but see, that's the right way to go about it, is to, work with the Linux community, even though the elementary guys have decided that's not the way we want to go for our distro. But they're still open to helping and still open to doing things. So, yeah, definitely the good way to go. Kai, did you want to get in on this?
Yes, and while I don't 100% disagree with Linux Mint's decision, I agree Snap is not the best system in the world. There's a lot of things I would improve, and I would gladly help with improving if I had the technological skills and know-how. But I really disagree with how Linux Mint is doing it. Instead of telling the user how to do it, I think they should either have the choice to agree installing Snap, like make it big red noticeable text saying, hey, this will install as a Snap package, installing Snapd, and explain the reasons why it might not be the best decision. But if the user just puts like the letter Y and sends it off, then that would both allow user choice and the usability of Linux Mint to any user in the world if they so wish to do it.
Well, Kai, to your point, the official announcement says in Linux Mint 20, apt will forbid Snapd from getting installed. It goes on to say you'll still be able to install it yourself, and we'll document this in the release notes, but by default, apt won't allow repository packages from doing this on your behalf. So yes, you're right. Linux Mint is that distro that tries to make everything easier, and I think that would be a great way to go about it, is to put that box there and allow the user to make the choice, but do it for them just like they would do anything else.
Yeah.
All right, Dave.
This actually came up in the YouTube discussion, and we were talking about. I think it was Michael Lilly made the comment about them saying that apt will be forbidden from installing Snapd, and it's my understanding that they would basically just be putting a hold flag on it, because if you're actually going to have apt forbid software from being installed, wouldn't you have to hard code that into apt, which I don't know that Debian is really going to let them do?
they have their own version of apt and all that. So even the apt you into the app in the background, it's actually a Python script or something like that. It's a Linux Mint special thing that just makes everyone, at least me, really weirded out.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, I mean, the way they said it, that you can still install it, and they're going to explain how in their manuals. It seems to me that they're just going to use like apt hold snapd so that it doesn't show up I'm not sure it's hold, but there are flags that can be set on packages so that they don't show up in searches, and they don't it won't allow you to just install it without removing that flag.
Who knows what they're going to do? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it just seems like overkill to me to have to rework and hard code in for one package to forbid it, especially if you're then going to turn around and explain to people what you're going to explain to them how to unhard code it in.
Daniel?
So 2 things. The first one was to what you said about Mint having their own apt big pod. It's the same like advanced package tool underneath. It's just that the actual binary apt, I believe, is just a symlink to apt-get, whereas on upstream Ubuntu and I believe on Debian, they have like another program front end to the apt-get, apt-cache stuff that you had to do like back like before 1604 or something.
So when we did Linux Mint Debian edition, I looked at their Python tool that they have. They actually use more than just apt-get. They use aptitude for some things. It depends on what you're doing, and depends on which thing they call.
Okay.
But they do. So apt is still there, and you can call it, but you would probably have to go to the correct path in order to call it, because it's not part of the system path. So when you type apt, it's going to default to their apt tool.
All right, Computer Kid.
So I just wanted to point out that basically the gist of this is that getting snaps just won't be as snappy of an experience.
I love it.
Michael
Thank
Tennell would be
you.
so proud.
Yeah.
Barbara, do you have an opinion on this at all?
Actually, yes, I do. I think they're because I went on their website and I read their little comment, and I actually think that the way they said it was pretty snarky. It wasn't as I think some people here are trying to say, well, depending on, because it's written, you don't have expression, whatever. No, what they said was snarky, and they're making it difficult for people to install snaps by not even allowing by default to install snapd. So the more I listened to, and yet they allow Flatpaks, because I was asked somebody something about that. So, I think it's almost like they're, then why are they using all of Ubuntu's stuff? Why don't they just stick with Debian Linux Mint and not take advantage of everything that they don't have to redo or they don't have to modify, because they're using a lot of Ubuntu's base. And I just think it was very, very snarky, and it would make me to the point where I would not, I actually thought before, okay, Linux Mint is Linux Mint, and if somebody really wanted to try it and they wanted, it's a safe bet. Well, they're limiting what I can install on my computer if I put on Mint without going through hoops and jumping fences. It shouldn't be that way. When Flatpaks first came out and snaps first came out, and you had to sit around and play with it, but now they're relatively mature. But to allow Flatpaks and not snaps, it almost like there's almost a dig to the way they said it. That's why I said it was kind of snarky, and I think the whole thing is snarky.
Well, I think that they're not doing anything different than, say, well, I guess they are doing things differently than other distros. So other distros have put Flatpak as their main thing, and but they're taking it one step further with snaps. But I think the biggest thing, Barb, is like you said, how they went about it and the way they said it. They didn't really have to do it that way. So
No, I mean, Papa West did a much better way. They did it in a mature, professional manner. This was not very professional. And in reading that, I would think, I don't know if I want to use this distro. If I'm coming to Linux from Windows or from Mac, and go, I don't know, I don't like the tone of that.
Well, to be honest with you, Barb, I mean, if I'm looking at it from the outside in, just the infighting itself, just that whole idea that this is a thing would turn me off.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, I thought the comment was snarky. I know some people thought, well, it depends on how you word stuff, but you can write something in such a way that it's not snarky if you really think about it. Papa West did, System 76 did, and nobody's offended by what they did. So, but they have for a while. It's always like, well, we're better than Ubuntu. We're better than. I've gotten that feeling for a while, and that kind of just tied the knot. So that was my feeling.
And I wasn't, I just typed you in the side chat, but I feel I want to mention that here. I was not necessarily excusing what they wrote.
Oh yeah,
or how
I
they
understand
wrote
that.
it. It's just the point being said that sometimes things can be misconstrued. We all know that Mint has always had, as I put in here, somewhat of an arrogant undertone to them and how they dealt with us. I mean, that's to me is probably the better description of them. They do put out a nice product. They do seem to be like, even we had conversation, correct me if I'm wrong, Rocco, about maybe having somebody from them on here. And that was said, that'll never happen because of who they are and how they deal with things. So no, again, not making excuses. You could tell if somebody's, you can tell when something's out and out blatant.
Yeah, when they write in their blog and it goes, this is a big no-no, and they have no all caps.
Right, that's basically taking as shouting, yes.
So they're being really snarky, and there is an arrogance to it. And I agree with you. They've had that arrogance for a long time.
Yeah.
Matt?
Yeah, I just throw out something real quick, a little bit on a bigger note with Linux, in my opinion, that we got to watch, especially with how we're perceived, is that sometimes I think in the Linux community, we just have a few too many distros or people that get snarky, period. I've read something in a Fedora help forum that just cringed me. Somebody just tore apart a new user for asking a basic question. This kind of echoed that to me. It was, you've got a distro now doing it, but one thing I like about this show is it's very new user friendly, I think. But yeah, in general, the Linux community should be a little more friendlier at times. And as far as Mint goes, I used it for years, and somebody talked earlier about Linux, some users just defaulting to it. I've gotten back into Linux, but for 6-8 years, Mint would come out with a new version. I would throw it on, and it was stable, and I used it, and I didn't really follow what was going on in the community. I mean, I've kind of come out of that on the other side now, but so that was a good product for that. And as far as Snap goes, it is a little bit of a weird decision, but like people have already talked about too, that with Mint, that they've always been sort of rebellious at times against Ubuntu, even though it's their upstream. So I think that's kind of part of their attitude.
Well, I think the reason that this brings up so much tension is because Linux Mint is looked at as one of those ones that you would suggest to new people. And if they want to use Chromium as their browser, you're basically going to have to set this up for them, because the new user is not going to want to go follow the detailed instructions in the manual to install Chromium. So it kind of like goes against what we look at for Linux Mint, which is something that's friendly and new user friendly.
And I'm sorry, but all you other distros have to stop being snarky, because we Arch users are the true snarks, and y'all just have to be polite.
You ain't lying. Chris.
Yeah, well, that kind of goes along with what I wanted to discuss, and that's the corporate culture, excuse me, just like, and what was the original reason to fork off and make a Mint? Was it a protest that something that Ubuntu was doing or Debian was doing, and so they felt that they could do it better, or is it something that they're like, oh well, we're going to make the best thing in the world, and everybody else is weak in comparison, or something like that?
Hold on, Chris. Hold on, Chris. Daniel, go ahead.
So basically the reasoning was, from what I understand, is that, you know how like you have that box to check to install like media codecs and that kind of thing, like when you install most Ubuntu-based distros. So in the past, you know, there's a licensing thing where you can't have that kind of stuff by default on Linux. And so for a long time, most distros did like what Fedora and OpenSUSE do, where you have a separate repo that's not maintained by the team or something like that. Or it's just not there by default and you have to add this extra repo. But what Mint were the first people to introduce that checkbox because people were really mad about how hard it was to get the media codecs and things on Ubuntu proper. And then Ubuntu added it, but you know, by that time Mint had grown and there were other opinions that sort of kept it alive.
So this whole thing with that we've been talking about for the past 10 minutes is not something that would be part of their corporate culture. This is something that they're doing that is outside of what they normally would do.
I wouldn't say that because, well, like what I was just like, they were founded to be Ubuntu, but I guess like, let's take Ubuntu, but let's implement it the way we want to, because not necessarily like we want to do a style tweak, but we just don't like the way they handle this. And as far as I know, like, they're still a good distro and everything, but they do have a history of kind of finding new reasons for that. And Snap is the latest one.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I've been looking at people finding in recent times, like within the past couple months, just finding a reason for complaining, or, you know, the slightest perception of a grievance against somebody blows it into a huge mountain over a molehill. And so what I was trying to get a feel is if the Mint developers always had an attitude of, well, we're going to do what we're going to do, and you can't do anything about it, which is almost like what one of the distros we did a while back ago, where I can't even remember.
Elementary?
What was it?
Solus? Elementary?
Solus. Yes, Solus. They present a product, and if you don't like it, well, then fine, go find a different distro. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
And I don't agree with that philosophy because of reasons that we discussed already tonight. But it just I just don't think that we need to be shocked or dismayed because this is something, and like Rocco said, this is just something that was put out on a blog. It could have been a feeler type of thing, see what kind of reaction they'd get from it, and say, oh, well, geez, maybe we should rethink that or something. I don't know.
We shall see. I mean, usually their news is how they feel. So I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a feeler thing. I think they do what they want regardless, but I do think that anything can change. So we just have to wait and see when it comes out. Farron, go ahead.
Well, I have a few things to say on the matter, though I'll have more to say once we have confirmation of whether this has happened in Mint Ready Beta. First thing is that, well, just on the subject of snarkiness, let's not forget that they did say that the Ubuntu 2004 Chromium package was quote unquote a backdoor to connect your computer to the Ubuntu store.
Yep.
And on the subject of the whole, it's like, we'll let you install it yourself thing, let's not forget that they mentioned that in the same, it's like, little bit of the blog as the Chromium package change. And in their own Chromium package, which you can get from the Linux Mint package repositories on the Juliana codename, aka Mint Trini, they link in the description to the official Chromium download page, which likely means source code. So what they're likely saying there is that they'll let you install Chromium and tell you how to compile it and install it from the source code on the Chromium download page in the release notes.
Well, again, we'll have to wait and see what they come up with.
We'll have to see what it turns out to be when Mint Trini comes out, or at least the beta comes out, because I'm pretty sure they'll have the release notes ready by beta.
Well, I think we kind of beat this subject to death, so we're going to move on to some happier news. The other week we had the Ubuntu Focus guys on, and it's awesome to see Linux being installed by default on computers, laptops, whatever you want to see. Lenovo just basically dropped another bombshell saying that they are going to allow you to get ThinkPads with Ubuntu installed by default. What do you guys think? I think this is awesome.
I'm glad I already have my System 76 Lemur, because otherwise that would have been so tempting to have a laptop with a track point with Linux installed by default.
I think they even said they certified all their Think stations, so they're going full tilt. So it's everything in the Think line.
They need to have done this. They need to have done this like more than a year earlier, so that I could have bought my own laptop with Ubuntu on it and not have to fight with Acer technical support just to fix a bug I was having when I first got the laptop.
Well, but it's been the last 18 months of Windows updates that have really given so many people headaches to such an extent that they're finally honestly looking for alternatives.
Yep. You guys can jump right in. Big Pod, go ahead.
As far as I understand their announcement, it will only be ThinkPad P series and not the whole ThinkPad brand. So only ThinkPad P series, which are more business-oriented ThinkPads.
It says ThinkStation and ThinkPad P series.
When you listen to the Linux for Everyone podcast, where he talks to the Lenovo people, he says specifically ThinkPad P series. But that's still better than the 3 laptops that Dell's doing right now. So
that
you
have to search to actually see the it say Ubuntu version,
and you have to go to the right search bar basically to find them.
Mm-hmm.
I tried doing that the other day and it was so annoying.
So a couple questions I have is, so they're shipping on the P series, but the entire lineup's being certified, right?
No, as far as I'm aware, only ThinkPad P and full ThinkPad is being certified. So not the whole ThinkPad lineup.
Maybe T series, maybe, or
no mention of T series at all.
It could be that ThinkPad P series, I know they were going to ship Fedora on that, and they wanted to use only the Fedora repos, which means all free software. But maybe they're certifying all of the other things, like with Ubuntu and with Red Hat, because those don't have the same restrictions on proprietary drivers or something.
And the other thing they're doing is, even on the P series, it shares a lot of the hardware with the T series and all the others. So they're upstreaming all of that hardware. So that's going to just really... Lenovo already had great support when it came to if you wanted to put Linux on it, but it should improve any of that. Fingerprint readers, things like that, hopefully would be coming down that pipe as well.
I think the more options that you can get out of the gate are definitely a good thing. I mean, you know,
Definitely.
we need more out there like this than less. That's for sure. So you know, it's going to bring some competition, and it'll get Linux in front of people that might not have chose that before.
And they've got to make it easy enough for people. That's the thing. Not like when I got my XPS 13 back in, I got the developer editions back in 2014. I ended up having to call Dell to order it. I mean, that was ridiculous. It was on the website, but you couldn't get it unless you had a business account. And no, I didn't have a business account, but yeah, and they made it very, very difficult. And they've got to make that easier.
Yeah, this will bring competition to that, if nothing else.
Yep.
Yeah.
So as I understand it, Lenovo is also making one additional step, is they're making a set of tools to help people migrate from their Windows environments over to those.
Really?
Oh, yes.
That's awesome.
It's pretty big. Mark Pearson, I think, is one of the senior Linux software engineers working on the project, and he was talking about that a couple of days ago, that they were going to do that.
Well, that's why we had the Ubuntu Focus guys on, and that's why we're bringing this up here, because this is any time that we can talk about Linux on by default. I think it's pretty awesome.
So I do want to say, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Joe.
No, I was just going to say, I did go to Dell's website, 3 clicks, and I have the Ubuntu XPS in front of me. So they've improved the search. That's good, because it was bad.
So let me ask you though, how did you go about searching for it?
I did what I would normally do. I went products, laptops, and then I went, I want to look at an XPS. XPS, developer editions right there. Click, Ubuntu's right there.
Okay,
so
then they did get
Were
better.
you in their like business part of their website, or just the regular? If you type Dell.com, you'd be able to get to it.
Because actually XPS is considered not a business. It's considered consumer. So no, it popped right up. So that's better. I've tried to do it before and it was no go.
Before it was crazy. I ended up having to call them.
I was going to say, maybe it's going to change as time goes on anyway, especially after this announcement. They may actually make another step forward to try to do a better job at that, because now they got competition.
Yep.
Now we have to start seeing some of these in the big box stores, the Best Buys, the whatevers. We have to start seeing that, because you're never going to get people interested. And they have to be reasonable in price.
And we need to start seeing other OEMs do this, like Acer, Asus, HP, all of them. They'll probably start small, like they're doing right now. But the more we have this happen, and the more people buy these intentionally, the better things are just going to get all around.
Right.
It'll be good, but there has to be a reason. And Acer and some of these others, I think we're hopeful. It would be great one day if it just became a thing. But developers, this is what even Dell. It's still a developer edition. They know people like to develop in Linux and all that. So it could be a while before we see something like mainstream. Before you pull up the latest Acer S5 and it's like, now shipping Linux. Now, unless, as was mentioned, I know I've got a little bug that pops up on my Lenovo or my Dell that says, we can't update your Windows yet, but we'll let you know one day when it works because the updates break it. So,
but what I want to know is, are they including the drivers that have always been problematic? Like, are they able to license putting NVIDIA on there, or do they have to go with AMD, or what? That's the primary thing that we got to look at, as far as what they're offering as a. Now, I don't know what the P line is versus like the T's. Is that?
It's like their desktop replacement. It's more of a workstation replacement type line.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a heavy duty, unplug it, get an hour and a half of battery life if you're doing anything type of laptop.
So I mean, if you look at it like the Precisions already come with a low end NVIDIA card with the NVIDIA drivers. So is there is there going to be parity in this? And that's what I would like to see before.
Well,
I
the other
make a
thing,
decision
Chris,
on it.
if you look at System 76, for instance, they have, I think almost all theirs are using NVIDIA drivers. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong,
those
somebody.
that ship with NVIDIA do.
Right.
Like my Gamer Pro is just all Intel chipsets pretty much, so it's just all in the kernel anyway.
Oh, okay. But they seem to be getting around it on the ones that do have NVIDIA drivers. Because I think some of them do.
And
I mean,
another thing
NVIDIA
they
cards.
do is they actually ship a specific ISO with the NVIDIA drivers they can download from the PowerOS website.
Mm-hmm.
Having grown up under the aegis of follow the money and you'll find out why things are done, can anyone here tell me any of these manufacturers that don't add a little bit more to the cost of the Windows operating system they install to up their profit margin by a smidge, which they really can't do with Linux installs because it's free?
Well, the
You still
technique
charge
is
for the
still
labor.
good. The technique is still good. User won't know how much the price is the operating system, how much the price is the computer itself. So
They could just charge the same for both and get more margin on Linux.
yeah, and I still don't think this will bring Lenovo laptops in stores. That's because stores are really, really, really bad at this, because they actually choose what devices they want to have and what specific SKUs they want to have. It isn't just Lenovo, take these laptops and that's it. We want these SKUs and these SKUs specifically. So that can bring quite a lot of problems, as if Ubuntu or if Linux isn't popular enough, they won't choose those laptops because they won't be bought, and that's why stores won't want to sell those laptops, because they will think they won't be bought, and that will be just lost for them.
And anybody here in the U.S. have experience taking a laptop or a desktop to the Geek Squad for repair with Linux?
I avoid them like the plague.
If I saw somebody walk to a Geek Squad, I'd tackle them and then fix their problem for free.
What I'm curious about is are laptop sales following kind of the overall trend? How many people are buying laptops in brick and mortar retail stores versus just simply ordering a configuration online from like Dell or Apple or Lenovo or whoever?
Amazon.
Most normal people will buy
or
them either
Amazon.
in store. Will probably buy them in stores.
Yeah, I think
This
you'd
is
be
what I see
surprised that
here.
most people just walk in because they don't know what they want or need.
Yeah.
There's a reason Walmart sells laptops.
Yes.
And don't put it down Costco and BJ's and stuff like that, because a lot
They
of people
sell a lot,
from that,
Chris.
yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just curious of what those numbers are, because online retail has grown into such a behemoth. Even that, like, just pre-configured stuff on Amazon's marketplace.
Well,
That's
I think it
probably
has.
one of the main ways they sell online via the Amazon, but I don't think they sell a lot from their own websites, like on Dell's website or something like that. I just don't see it for normal people. They would buy that way.
I think there are too many options that they have to pick out, and they don't understand half the terms and half the things they'd have to check off. I think it's easier for a lot of people just to walk into a big box store and buy one. I mean, I've gone into Best Buy
They
to get
can
other
see
stuff.
they can see it working right in front of them.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the
But I think
and
the
they're
bigger
still going to
way.
be paranoid that they're paying too much because they're getting the salesman is trying to upsell them with stuff they don't need.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think the
3 years
most
of Norton
important thing-
antivirus.
the most important thing that people go to a store for is to actually talk to somebody about it, regardless if the guy knows anything about it or not. They just seem to feel better when they're in front of somebody asking questions and somebody answering their questions for them, and that's something that online can't do. So
Also, a big thing for users, I don't know how it is in America, but a lot of users want that 24-month payment strategy or 36-month, and sometimes on websites it's kind of hard to get those payment strategies, where in stores people just trust more. They they can get paper, they can sign that paper, and it will say 24 months, 26 months, and not trust a website that give it their credit card. Maybe they will charge it all at once, or do some recurring charge even for more time than was said on the website. Where with the paper, with the sided paper, they feel somewhat more trusting into that. So that's another reason.
Daniel,
a lot of factors go into this. Yeah.
Well, okay, so one thing I was wondering about is, I guess Chris sort of already brought this up, about the NVIDIA drivers, but as they're wanting to go, like at least with the Fedora versions, they want to go with the Fedora repos, which don't include any proprietary software. I think they have like a LBRY in the kernel, but like, the NVIDIA drivers aren't there, but yet there are a lot of P-series laptops that have NVIDIA cards. So are they just going to make sure that all of those work with Nouveau, and then say you can install NVIDIA if you want, or are they going to put RPM Fusion on, or what?
But they talked about in that, I think it was the LBRY podcast, but they even talked about running some of their own proprietary Lenovo software, kind of their neat little tools that they have. I say they're neat, but whatever. Tools that they have for Windows, they were porting some of that stuff over to Linux to be using it. So
but they also mentioned that they were going to use just the Fedora repos, or something.
maybe Fedora's going to add some repos. Who knows? I don't know.
I guess so. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to work. I think. I mean, there's no way they ship an NVIDIA card with Nouveau drivers. Like nobody in their right.
They're going to use
nobody would buy
they're
that.
using Red Hat. That's the thing.
Well,
they're using Red Hat, which is already breaking the GNU license.
Yeah.
So.
On the first boot of Fedora, don't they now automatically ask you if you want to put in RPM Fusion?
When you open up the
if
door.
you have an NVIDIA card, it automatically installs the native driver.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
It'll give you that choice. So,
like I had to do the whole no mode set dance when I installed Fedora a couple of months ago. That was Fedora 30.
This is new with 32.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't. I just downloaded Fedora 32. I was going to put it on one of the machines. I haven't even gotten a chance to take a look at it yet. So
because RPM Fusion, like, that's not even on their infrastructure, right? That's like just some basically Fedora fans run it.
Yeah,
well,
something like that.
Yeah, it's like the major. It'd be like the friends of the Glastonbury library. They're the ones that sit there and interface with the public to funnel funds and donations and stuff into the library. Library doesn't actually do that, and so that's what the RPM Fusion is it just says, okay, I'm going to take a bunch of these RPM packages, make them available where you can go out there, because you can do free and non-free and all
so
that. Yeah, I think that's why it was originally set up.
Is that what you're saying, Chris? RPM Fusion is the library?
Yeah, well, no, I was using the library as an
so
as
like
an
Fedora is the
example.
library and RPM Fusion is the friends. Okay, yeah.
I think it was their way of allowing users to actually use non-free software without jumping through too many hoops.
Yeah, but it wasn't made by by Red Hat. It was made by Fedora wasn't made by Red Hat. Fedora was adopted later by Red Hat.
I think you will find that a lot of the stuff that's in RPM Fusion there's a lot of crossover with the devs that are on Fedora and Red Hat.
Yeah.
It's just, a lot of the software that they normally use that they wanted to have, but they couldn't put in the official repos.
Yeah.
So they kind of set up this sidebar one, so a lot of the original stuff was from the Fedora devs.
There's a lot of crossover too with
Yeah.
with the Debian devs as well. Yep, in that repo. So
I know that on SUSE we have something called Pac-Man it has a K in it, but that's unfortunate. But so they actually do have some proprietary software in the OBS, but like it's its own repo, and they can only put certain things in there that are, one, popular enough, and two, don't break certain like license things. So like if you want any media codecs, you have to go and install Pac-Man, which is
actually not, because there are a lot of individual devs that have their own repos in OpenSUSE.
Well, yeah, that's true. I've got one.
Yeah, because the open build
broken.
system, whenever I put in Tumbleweed, I usually end up with about 15 to 20 of the individual devs repositories just to get all the stuff I want.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh yeah.
I just have the one for like the open Razor drivers, basically, and I can use Flatpak and Homebrew for everything else.
See, I like all my installed on hardware software. I don't use. I avoid snaps and Flatpaks unless I have to.
Okay, I avoid I avoid snaps generally because of the app armor thing, and also like it bugs me that the store is proprietary. And then I use Flatpaks for like proprietary applications, so they're in their little sandbox. I know it's broken, but it's better than nothing. And I just got fed up with having, if you add 15 OBS repos, that can really do a number on your refresh speed. Anyway, sorry.
Computer Kid?
Yeah.
So my comment was on a rather old topic in the conversation, but are they really selling laptops with Ubuntu? The way I had interpreted it was that they were going to license these laptops for Ubuntu or something like certified, so that Ubuntu would run perfect on them if you installed it yourself.
No, they're actually going to be available to buy with Ubuntu installed.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yep. Yes, I totally agree. Something else that was awesome, Joe.
Yeah.
Something else that was awesome.
Oh.
A topic you wanted to bring up.
Oh, well.
Refresh yourself, Joe.
Yeah, sorry. I had to, hold on. Let me sudo snap. Oh, they took my package. I can't do it. I'm on Mint. Sorry. Can't refresh.
Well. Too soon.
So I don't know if you guys caught the Ubuntu podcast this week, but at the end, Wimpy drops a really nice little note there where he says, maybe, just maybe, we are working on Ubuntu desktop for the Raspberry Pi. And then it cuts off. So I thought, wow, not the repackage thing, not install the server and put a desktop environment, but they're actually developing Ubuntu desktop for the Raspberry Pi specifically. So that move to ARM development is going to make a huge difference. I mean, that fixed with the things we talked about last week, my 8 gig Pi didn't get here yet. It's going to be here tomorrow or Monday. But, and then the being able to boot from USB. I mean, those things, those little 8 gig ARM devices are going to scream. And he said all the flavors. So I'm assuming, there will be a Lubuntu. I mean, whatever they're working on. So that's pretty sweet. Like, that's awesome news, I thought.
So you could make a Pi frame with that's going to be native Ubuntu.
Native Ubuntu. With snaps. No, I don't know about that.
Raspberry Pi last weekend and tried to play with the Desktopify script, installed Ubuntu on it. And that's when I found out that the Raspberry Pi stuff doesn't like ultra wide that much right now.
You can do 4K, just not ultra wide, probably.
No, it's just not ultra wide.
Yep.
Still haven't found a use case for a Raspberry Pi. Sorry.
It's going to be my son's new, what is it called? Programming. Like, he's learning program. I'm going to teach him programming on it.
Yes, you have, Rocco. It's right behind you for those times that you forget to turn the sign on and off. Simple as that.
Yes, but Joe, here's the problem with that. I mean,
I was going to say that.
I get it. But
we can run a cron job that kicks on Saturdays. Boom.
The problem with it is it doesn't I mean, it's okay. Like if the sign turn on, but you know, part of that is me saying we're open for business. I guess maybe that would remind me to say that we're open for business if I seen the light come on. So maybe you're right.
Well, just set it up as it's voice activated.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Or you
could activated a sign in front of you that said turn on the sign behind you.
That when you go
Let's
live,
Rudolph Goldberg this thing. Yeah, sure, why not?
Get a lot of, and then we'll have another sign down below that says look at the sign above you to tell you to turn on the sign behind.
All right, so since me talking about this open sign, there has been 3 people that said they were going to help me do that somehow, get that sign, you know, Raspberry Pi thing, whole automated type thing. And all 3 of them like kind of like stop talking about it now. So I'm wondering, is that a reflection on me? And
I think it's the voice activation getting set up.
They don't want you to mess up the grub on the pie that they send.
They don't want me to break it. That's the problem, I think.
It's the worldwide event kind of killed it. Man.
They definitely don't want any pixels off on.
You need a $75 switch to turn a sign on.
Right.
You don't need the 8 gig model. Let me just tell you.
And honestly, Rocco, what I use mine for is I've got a 10 terabyte, you know, Western Digital USB drive hooked to it so that I don't have to leave my main rig running. That's my file server that I can access from anywhere in the world.
Well, Dave, there was just a video, I think, that came out from Gary Explains, and he talks about making a Raspberry Pi for a NAS, like making a NAS out of a Raspberry Pi. That might be a good use case for me.
I run an own cloud server on mine. And so it's my file server, and you know, anywhere that I drive in my truck, I fire up my laptop and I've got all my files from home.
Yep.
Well, the other cool thing is they have that fancy new camera stuff too. So you know, maybe people will be interested in that weren't, you know, high quality camera, you know, that you can kind of put anywhere and have it, you know, send imaging. That's pretty cool. I mean,
I can see somebody getting that, the camera and the 8 gig Raspberry Pi, and making a completely overkill camera just to say they've done it.
So I've been using a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus as a Unify controller for my access points.
Mm-hmm.
So before we're running out of time, but Tyler, I know you're like super excited about the Lemur Pro. So I'm going to give you the last couple minutes here if you want to say something about what, you know, because you bought parts for it. You bought it, and then you went to Micro Center and bought parts for it. So tell us about your new Lemur Pro.
Yes, I pretty much I kind of just ordered the base Lemur Pro, and what I did is before I got it in, I went to Micro Center and I picked up a 32 gig RAM module for it and a 1 terabyte SSD to upgrade it. You know, got to have all that storage, got to have all that RAM, and it's a fantastic light laptop. It's a 14-inch laptop screen, but it's actually physically smaller than my 13-inch Galago Pro.
So, so is it the reason you did the upgrade right as soon as you bought it is because it was cheaper to do the upgrade that way, or what?
Yeah, it was a bit more cost effective. It usually is to do it that way. It just doesn't matter which manufacturer unless you're dealing with soldered in stuff.
So have you experienced the 3,435 hour battery life?
I am currently putting it through its paces right now, and Zoom is pretty battery intensive. I got to give it that. I've been on battery this entire Zoom meeting. I'm down about 50%.
Oh, wow.
But I still got a few hours left, so it's still much better than what my Galago Pro was.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy for you, dude.
Tyler, how much of that is going to also eat up your battery? Like, you now have 32 gig of RAM, and it's an SSD, so that really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No, because cameras really do.
Huh?
Cameras really do.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because when I put, I've got the Gazelle, last year's model, and I put I put 32 gig of RAM in it, and of course I added a second hard drive and all this other stuff, so my battery life isn't as good.
Did you add a spinning drive?
Yeah, because I wanted 2 terabytes just for put stuff on
Yeah,
in a
it was an-
cost-effective way.
Yeah, the SSDs are SIP power,
Oh, yeah.
but the spinning drive, yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah,
the
because
new LBRY Pros only have M.2 slots, so it's all SSD.
yeah, because this has both. So, but I wanted to. Yeah, I needed that extra 2 terabytes of space, and wasn't going to spend $250. No, 400, wasn't it? Some incredible amount of money I wasn't going to spend.
It's a lot of money for terabyte SSD still. So
Yeah. I think it was, I don't know, 2 something for the 2 terabytes.
Well, you're going to have to keep us updated, Tyler, on how you're making out with the LBRY Pro.
Oh, definitely. And I'll get. So yeah, Zoom's been pretty battery intensive, but I'll give a report on just regular usage when I'm not doing a fiddle.
Okay, dig it.
Are you using their camera? Is that the built-in camera?
Yep, this is the built-in camera.
Fairly good.
Built-in microphone.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's good for a laptop for sure.
Yeah, it looks really good.
All right, we are out of time. We had a long chat, and we could probably go on, but we're out of time. Dan Simmons, last word.
Thanks, Rocco, for this forum and the ability to discuss all of these great things. And thanks to Joe and Bill and everybody else that helps out here. Thanks to my fellow Lubuntu team members. Couldn't happen without all of them. So I really appreciate that. And yeah, look forward to Ubuntu Studio next week.
All right, Joe.
Thanks, Rocco. Wonderful show. Love the forum. Love the format. Good people in here. Wonderful, wonderful group. Dan, thanks for all the hard work on Lubuntu. It really is, a solid, stable running distro. Happy to know you and happy to see your fruits of your guys' labor paying off. It's good stuff. And thanks everyone. Again, this show is great because a lot of people are here and the conversation's good and it keeps flowing. And we talked about some really cool stuff today and look forward to doing it again.
Bill, last word. Bill. Okay, moving on. MC, last word, brother.
Hey, Rocco, once again, thank you for having this forum, this meeting with everybody. It's always great to be here, and thanks to Dan and Joe and everyone else who helps you put this thing on. Just as a heads up for everyone's talking about Tyler's computer, this is also my System 76 Kudu Professional camera that I've been using for weeks and weeks and weeks, and yeah, it's just a straight laptop camera. I've been very happy with their products.
Nice. All right, Peter, last word.
System 76 is great. I love my Filio. Also love my new Dell laptop at work. It's a Dell Latitude 5500. Great laptop. Has no problems with snaps or Flatpak because it runs Windows 10.
All right, Tom, last word.
Just thank you to everyone. Next.
All right, Big Pod, last word.
Thank you guys for watching us, and thank you, Rocco, for having me. I don't have much to say.
Tony, last word.
Well, thanks for doing the show, Rocco, as always, and Dan for Lubuntu. Impressed. Downloaded the 2010 version, and I'll have a look at that as well. Next week, Rocco, double whammy.
Very
European.
good, Tony. Thank you very much. Very good. Biddle Europe.
Yep. Just thought I'd remind you.
I love you
I haven't got
guys.
a lot else to say, really. So just take care, everyone. Be safe. I look forward to the double whammy next week, and I'll see you all then.
Jinda, last word, brother.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for letting me play with Ubuntu. It was a great distro. See you guys next week.
Colin.
Yes, thanks Rock and Co for the platform, and yeah, good job on the Lubuntu there, Dan and team. It's running pretty well. I might leave it on the laptop for a little while, see how it runs. And yes, have a great week and stay safe, everyone.
Dave.
Thank you, Rocco, and all those who work so hard behind the scenes to make this place happen. Thank you to all the Lubuntu people who work to make a truly incredible distribution that doesn't get nearly the credit it deserves. And thank you all for welcoming me back, and I will see you next week.
Thomas, last word.
Well, thank you for having me on again this week. I would have tried Lubuntu, but I had to learn the hard way this week that hackers suck. So
we had that on the list. I was going to ask you about that. We just never got to it, Thomas.
If you want to know more, go check out the Biddle Discourse. I made a subject about it, explaining what happened and why my life sucks this week. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, maybe we'll get into it next week, brother.
Fair.
If it's not backed up in 3 different places, it's not backed up.
It was backed up, thankfully. I was good. I just didn't want to have to set everything back up.
All right. The real Daniel.
Yeah, thanks everybody for having me. Dan, I only got to look at Lubuntu for like 10 minutes, but those 10 minutes were amazing. And yeah, I'll be happy to get back to everybody next week.
All right, Farron.
Yeah. So we might be out of time, but are we out of touch?
Okay. TJ, last word.
Hope you all have a great week. And Rocco, thanks again. And many thanks to the Ubuntu team for all the work you do. We all really appreciate it.
Chris.
Okay, well, let's see here. I'm following Tony's lead here. Got it up and running. and thanks. I always look forward to it. I always wonder how we're going to fill 2 hours, and we always seem to have more than enough to fill. So it's great. And I love talking things over with you guys. Hope to see you next week then.
All right, Barbara.
I want to thank Rocco and Dan and anybody else who's involved in getting this every week. I always enjoy it. And thank everybody for making this a great virtual lug. And don't forget, we still have COVID-19 out there, and it's going to come back with a vengeance. Wear your mask, socially distance, wash your hands, and stay 6 feet or 2 meters or more apart. And I want to see everybody next week.
Okay. The original Joe.
Well, thank you for another fun night. This was very enjoyable. One of the comments made earlier about Fedora being not so nice with one of the comments on, to a new user. I think that that's getting to be more of the exception than the rule anymore. I'd like to think that Linux has gotten to be a much friendlier place. Communities and platforms like this in itself are perfect examples of that. So I hope that even with all the discussion we had tonight about Mint and all these different things that have gone on, doesn't taint that or put a bad taste in anybody's mouth, because truly, I think Linux, the strides overall that it's made over the last decade plus, and you can see it evolving, I think not even just year by year, but week by week anymore. It seems like it should be enough to speak for itself. So I think that any of the negative things, you're going to have good and bad and everything. I think that those are more the exception than the rule. So thanks again, and we'll see you guys soon.
Aris, last word.
Thank you to everybody who makes the show possible, especially Dan, who's here talking to us Ubuntu this week and develops it.
All right. Computer Kid.
Thanks, guys. This was really fun. Thanks for having me. It was a fun evening. I hope I can make it for Europe. I'll be on vacation, so we'll see. But I'm going to try. Is this the time for shameless plugs?
This is.
Okay, check out computerkid.getlab.io.
There you go. Perfect. Another Dan. Dan, we don't have any audio from you, So we'll get back to you at the end. Bill, are you there yet?
I'm here unless Zoom crashes. So thank you, Rocco. Thank you, Dan, for everything that you do. Thank you to the Lubuntu team. Awesome this week that the mighty Joe Ressington was on Linux Spotlight with the most awesome high-def camera I have ever seen. So it is worth watching. You can't get the effect is not the same if you just do the audio podcast of this one. You have to watch it. It is incredibly good. And thank you for doing that, and thank Joe for being there to do that as well.
Last chance here. Dan, you got your mic working yet? All right, brother, I'm sorry, but we don't hear the audio. I know you're unmuted, but we don't hear anything. So I thank you for being here. All right. So as Bill mentioned, Joe Ressington was on Linux Spotlight, and I have to say that you probably should just listen to the audio. That's the video was just terrible.
I feel like I'm not getting the last word in here.
Wait, didn't we get Tyler? Didn't we already do Tyler?
No, Miss Tyler.
Come
He's got the Joe Ressington screen up there.
He does.
I thought we got you at the top.
About the System 76 stuff, or
okay. All right. Last word, Tyler.
Well, I was gonna say, love my Lemur Pro. It's fun discussing Mint today, and Pop OS is fantastic.
There you go. Last word. Okay, so Joe Ressington's video. You should probably have seen the original that I seen because it was really like hot pink. Through the magic of DaVinci Resolve, I was able to kind of tone it down and make it look as best as it was possible. But it still was terrible. But I really appreciated Joe doing that because, nobody wants to have a camera like that. But, he did it, and it was a great conversation. So you should definitely.
Yeah, but just say, Rocco, just say you did it for the 1920s vintage look while you were doing it. There you go.
I think that was worse than the 1920s.
But it is Joe.
But it is Joe.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. Fit. Perfect.
The audio was great.
So there you go. So go listen to the audio at least. And you can do that at linuxspotlight.com. Just telling you, audio only. But this week I sat down with Robbie Ferguson of Category 5 and had a conversation with him about what he does at Category 5 and his Linux life and everything else. So check that out Wednesday at 6 a.m. As Tony mentioned and reminded me, Biddle Europe next Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. And then we will still have the normal Biddle at 8 p.m. So double show. And I hope to see you all there. Other than that, I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else. Dan, thank you for all of the hard work on Lubuntu, and please pass that on to the team. All right.
Absolutely.
We are out of here until next week, but long live Linux.
Night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.